This is the Messiah Hour with Ari Louis.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to email us throughout the program or after the show, you can do so at MessiahHour@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to make a financial contribution, you can do so through my PayPal account, which is IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. Redemption, redeeming, fancy numbers, and Zionism. We'll discuss all that today with our favorite rabbi from Tzfat, co-author of the hit book, The World of the Ger. Back to the program, Rabbi David Katz. Rob, how you doing out there?
Hi, Ari. Thanks for having me back. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Indeed. So let's talk about the concept of Kol HaTorah. Explain that to our audience. What's that all about?
The Kol HaTorah is a book written by the Vilna Gaon. The title is taken from a verse in the Song of Songs. In the time of the voice of the turtle dove is heard in the land, to paraphrase, is when you can expect to see what's called the righteous buds, or the two messiahs, sons of Joseph, and David. So the Vilna Gaon wrote this. The biggest misnomer, and I want to let everybody know that's listening, is a lot of people are aware of Kol HaTorah, especially today. Well, I'll get into that reason why here in a second. But you should know that it's a fallacy to say that there's only Kol HaTorah. There's actually several other books that are with Kol HaTorah. I'll give you an analogy, Ari. When you saw the Star Wars films when you were a kid, you, like me, were probably led to believe that's all there was, right? 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, exactly, right. We kind of, there were some hints, there was some backstory, but we kind of figured that's what it was.
Right. And then you found out there was like at least 9 books or storylines in total.
Yeah.
So Kol HaTorah is when you believe there's this one mystical book, and then they'll say it wasn't even the Vilna Gaon that wrote it. Then you find out there's like at least 4 other books. How you cut up their books. So some books have 2 books inside one. So the other books are called Chazon Sion, Musad HaYesod, and Dorosh Sion. So those books comprise the greater series of Kol HaTorah. And inside you get the keys of understanding Kol HaTorah. Kol HaTorah is your secrets of redemption. Very hard to understand without the keys. Obviously, like anything, has a written component, an oral component. These books tell you how to understand the whole story. So, again, a lot of people know the book, they're familiar with it, they find it challenging, or they find it not easy to understand, but understandable, but then they're not coming at it with the proper sources. Why is it a big deal? 2 reasons. Number 1, with the complete outlook, you can understand how the redemption will happen. Number 2, a lot of the Messianics are getting involved, and they're claiming Kol HaTorah. And the reason why they're claiming Kol HaTorah is they're taking the Mashiach ben Yosef concept out of context, which you can imagine is the whole Yashka thing. And this is a big problem. You have a lot of people attempting to become some kind of Noahide or Ger, whatever they want to call it, but they're attempting to be recognizable by Jews through adhering to the teachings of Yeshu as some sort of a Ben Yosef figure, and the New Testament as a kind of Mashiach ben Yosef document. The bottom line is it's never going to work. Mashiach ben Yosef has been a process. We all agree on that for thousands of years. But from the year 1740 onwards, it's the light of the Third Temple, the light of redemption, letting go of all the mishaps of the last 1,500 years at that point or whatever, a little more than that. We need to move on and look towards the light of the Third Temple, which the Vilna Gaon in his works explains a prophecy in the Zohar that wisdom will sprout from the earth. The well springs of heaven and earth will be opened, and from the years 1740 to 1840, which we saw happen with the advent of the Industrial Revolution, and that's when the Vilna Gaon, along with the Baal Tanya, Chabad, and the Hasidim, they used that wisdom to come to Israel, plant the seeds of redemption, and we are following in their footsteps, which is reason to believe that we will see the redemption in our times. If not exactly in our times, that we are walking in their footsteps and advancing the redemption, so that eventually there will be a redemption as per the Kol HaTorah theory.
And obviously that's very exciting. Let's talk a little bit more about the Gras of Vilna Gaon. Who exactly was this man and his influence at his time?
So according to keep the storyline focused, wisdom came back to earth in a new way around the year 1740. This is prophesied in the Zohar, based on the story of Noah, that the well springs of heaven and earth will be open. And again, we saw the advent of the Industrial Revolution. In case you weren't paying attention, things changed in the last 200 years. Right? World Wars I and II came out of it. Your cell phone came out of it. All the things that we have, the world radically changed. Just to give some context. Now, what changed also was that the Ashkenazi Jews of Europe, again, the students of the Chabad movement, Hasidic movement, and of the Vilna Gaon, they teamed up to come to Israel, and they established what's called the Yishuv. Early Israel was called the Yishuv, the settlement. And then in their journalings, they describe how the Jews were here from the times of the temple, and now they were coming to reestablish the building of the temple and the coming of the Messiah, which totally puts to shame Palestinian claims. This all happened in the 19th century and the end of the 18th century, and effectively, these guys, especially the Vilna Gaon, invented Zionism completely. It was called Tzionit Gra'it, the Zionism of the Vilna Gaon. It would become hijacked by Herzl and the Bush dynasty, to basically put Jews on the land to serve other interests. But the Vilna Gaon explained that the wisdom was in motion, the redemption was on its way, and it's a process that began at that time. And you could say the Vilna Gaon was the father of not only modern Zionism, but a Messianic movement rooted in absolute authentic Judaism, one that's very alive today, and it's maintained by what he calls the Anshe Amunah, the men of the covenant, men of loyalty that are going to continue what they began, and every generation continues this until ultimately we witness the coming of the final Messiah.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. The email is MessiahHour@gmail.com. Our guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book, The World of the Ger. Rabbi Katz, tell me a little bit more about Zion Granit.
Zionism of the Vilna Gaon is very hard to understand because we understand Zionism today of Herzl, right, in the country of Israel. The Zionism of the Vilna Gaon is laid out in these books that I mentioned. And it's an entire, almost a theology of how the beginning of redemption comes. That's the entire thing. When you say you want Mashiach now, and you're thinking about Mashiach ben David and all of these things, you're not taking into consideration Mashiach ben Yosef. You're not taking into consideration the real Messiah. Now, why do I call him the real Messiah? Mashiach ben David is sent from above, so to speak, by the power of God. Right? Nobody can say, by my hands and might, I'm going to be Mashiach ben David. There's no movement of Mashiach ben David. It's simply God sends the soul, and that's it. Mashiach ben Yosef is what we would call Mashiach proper. It's a movement, it's a man, it's people, it's times, it's places. You can join the Mashiach ben Yosef movement. You can join Mashiach ben Yosef. You can be a part of Mashiach ben Yosef by your own free will and determination. And what he describes is that effort is getting into the soil of Israel and planting of Israel and self-sacrificing for Israel. So that by really getting into the beginning of the redemption, imagine if it's a machine, focusing on learning how to turn the machine on rather than working the machine. Vilna Gaon says it is paramount that we must make both jobs, so to speak, on equal terms. You must equate Mashiach ben David's greatness the same extent to Mashiach ben Yosef, for the entire redemption hinges on Yosef as the aspect of the beginning of the redemption, which it must be an awakening from below. That's our job. And that's Mashiach proper, as we would understand Mashiach. It begins in our hands, our ability to begin the redemption. The fallacy is when people think that exists by Mashiach ben David. I'm just going to go up and build the third temple. You're not. But what you can do is you can begin the Mashiach process as the Vilna Gaon lays out in his Zionism.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. I mean, what exactly is the Mashiach ben Yosef as per the Gras, his definition, his understanding, and how would you compare that to other people's understanding of him?
So again, the non-Jews are going to say Mashiach ben Yosef is just like this suffering shepherd, and he's going to return the exiles. Now, returning the exiles is part of it, but they're viewing it in a Mashiach ben David fantasy, right? There's going to be a miraculous man that's going to come and save us and all these things. That is not how it works. Not for Mashiach ben Yosef, and all the more so not for Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben Yosef is the idea of getting into the dust and the destruction and the soil of the land of Israel. It's called Kates Magola, making the end become revealed, the revealed end. And he lays out all the different ways to reveal the end and to actually get into the soil and dust of the land of Israel itself. Building the land of Israel. Building it through the mitzvot, building it many ways through planting. There's all kinds of ways he lays out in the book of what it is to build up Jerusalem, build up the land of Israel, reveal the end. That building time period must be on the same exact value as Mashiach ben David and all the glory with the third temple itself. I.e., if we're going to give an analogy, studying for the test must be as great as passing the test. As anybody who takes tests knows, there's nothing greater than the research as opposed to the writing or the knowledge in the front burner before you actually take the test. We have to apply that kind of thinking to Mashiach ben Yosef to allow the redemption to begin, and then it's assured that it will begin.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. Our guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book The World of the Ger. Rabbi Katz, talk a bit about the Rambam and his thoughts to Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David.
The Rambam has, in his commentary of the Mishnah, in the tractate of Sanhedrin, there's a chapter in Sanhedrin called Chelik, which is all about the Messiah. And he says the Messiah has to come from, I think it says Beis David, if I'm not mistaken. And that's fine. When, Davidic, and then he says, Vizera looks like Shlomo, the seed of Solomon. And anybody that goes against this holy family, is denying everything. Now, where it gets interesting, you got to really listen to this to pay attention. The Vilna Gaon explains that the equality of the two messiahs is based on a verse in Zechariah about the vine giving its fruit, which is the verse given in the Talmud about the revealed end, the Kates Magola. But the beginning of the verse says the expression Zera HaShalom, the seed of peace. And the idea is that the seed of peace is what is learned out by the Vilna Gaon and others as the equality of the two messiahs. So when it says Zera Shlomo, it's actually Zera Shlema. And Zera Shlema means equality. The idea is that the Rambam obviously knows this, as we find when you get to the bottom of all the sages, they all knew the same material. They just have a way of expressing things differently, which the uninitiated would call that machlokes, or an argument, when really it's different ways of expression. In the Vilna Gaon again, he explains that the seed of peace is equality. When the Rambam says Zera Shin Lamed Mem Hey, it's Zera Shlema, which is another way of saying, according to the translation in Aramaic, Targum Yonason explains it the same way. What it's coming to teach is that the house of David must be equal to David. You can't say that one Messiah is greater than the other. Right? If you can't say Mashiach ben David's greater than Mashiach ben Yosef, the Mashiach ben David, he's actually greater than David. Mashiach ben David is actually lesser than David, but that's okay. No. How do you identify Mashiach? He must be the same level as David. And when you look in the Rambam's laws of Mashiach, in the chapters of Malachim, where he brings, there's Mashiach, Chizkis Mashiach, Bavadai Mashiach. Two languages for certainty you'll know when Messiah comes. Both places he's describing King David as the dugma, as the example. And nowhere does he mention Solomon. So when you put it all together, it fits like a glove. Only when you take it out of context, by not finding the unison in Messiah Torah, then do you get strange equations, so strange that the Messianics find footing as well. Once they find footing, then we see that the balagan that comes with Messiah. Notori Karta then fights the state of Israel because of this. And then they go off on their own deep end. When the very essence is, there is a tradition, and that tradition is explained by the Vilna Gaon. And then when we see other authentic tradition, we can understand how Messiah works all through the Chazal passages, through the understanding and the lens of the Vilna Gaon, his Zionism, and his works of the Messiah.
Now you're talking about Messiah, you're talking about the equality. I want to know if there's equality of the two Messiahs, Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David.
They are to be seen as absolutely equal. There's a famous passage in Talmud, Sanhedrin. The Messiah, son of David, will not come until all things are equal. They bring a couple different examples of equality, but it's very enigmatic in the passages. The Vilna Gaon explains the equality as well, but again, very enigmatic the way he explains it. But when you get into the expanded Kol Torah, right, the surrounding books that explain Kol Torah, it's very simple. The beginning of the redemption, being self-sacrificing to live on the land, getting into the soil of the land, the dust of the land, building the land, all the things that nobody wants to do, that must be equal to the job of Mashiach ben David, which is what the Navi says is a place of glory and honor. Right? Mashiach ben Yosef is getting his hands dirty, and Mashiach ben David is termed sitting on the throne. But they must be equal in our perception and how we relate to them. This is under the term Anshe Amana, men of the covenant, men of loyalty, men of truth. Jerusalem was only destroyed because there stopped being men of truth. Men of truth are those that understand that God is going to redeem. The redemption started, he promised it, and he's going to carry it out. And wherever we are, based on earlier generations, we must continue their work. That work is predicated on the necessity that there must be an absolute equality between the cooperation of Ben Yosef and Ben David. Once you say you want one or the other, or you favor one or the other, or one was 2,000 years ago in a cult called Christianity, all these things, you've lost it. That's why it must be in a new light as going forward, not looking back. It's essential to the redemption coming to its fulfillment.
Now, I want to talk about this. You consider Christianity to actually be a cult. Can you expand a little bit more about that? Because it's a very controversial statement. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if you expand a little bit more on it.
In terms of the Vilna Gaon is going, in terms of my personal work, I like to say that Christianity was the biggest Ger movement gone wrong. And we know that Ger are related to the Mashiach ben Yosef time period, gathering of the exiles, all these things. So as much as it was a Ger movement gone wrong, the Jesus attachment to that time, now that let's say they got over, is he God? Is he the Messiah? All these things. And people are basically getting the idea that he's not God. He didn't deliver the full redemption. But nobody wants to let go. And it's because Mashiach ben Yosef is an easy target that whoever you want Mashiach ben Yosef to be, you can say he is. People think that. It's like, well, Lubavitcher Rebbe was great, and I'm not convinced he's Mashiach. He must have been Mashiach ben Yosef. That's what it was. Well, nobody gave you the liberty to say that. All right, well, Jesus was, he saw the non-Jew, and in the future the non-Jews can be redeemed. So Jesus must have been what the Vilna Gaon was talking about as a possible Mashiach ben Yosef. Well, logically, maybe it's correct what you're saying, but it's not true. In a sense, all of Israel history is Mashiach ben Yosef, gone wrong in a certain way. And the Vilna Gaon makes that point clear, for better or worse. But to cling on to the past and say, this guy was a Mashiach ben Yosef that I liked, well, we already have that. It's called Yerevam ben Nevat. And that's like one of the biggest tragedies that ever happened. So it doesn't pay to cling on to a Mashiach ben Yosef movement gone wrong. It only benefits to move forward with the new light of Mashiach ben Yosef in every unfolding day and epoch that we enter. And to learn and grow as Zionism today is growing, as the Vilna Gaon brought it out, and it was hijacked by the West and Erev Rav, it doesn't matter, because the Vilna Gaon's wisdom is still driving the whole thing. It's almost like he got the nations to pull his vision as some kind of coercion. That's how great the wisdom was. Anything looking back is basically cultish in view of looking forward. Because anytime you isolate and minimize Mashiach ben Yosef, then you're out of equality and you're out of redemption by definition. Only by staying that equality of neutrality, not biased, looking for the new revelation to come down, then can the redemption take hold. Anything short, again, is just going to be more of the same, and those are all those paths have been destined to fail.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. Thank you for joining us. You can always email us at MessiahHour@gmail.com. Our guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book The World of the Ger. Something that occurred to me, you're talking about the qualities of the two Mashiachs. You have Ben David, Ben Yosef. It's interesting that even among the non-Jewish world, these are two of the most popular names. Anyone named Joe or Joseph comes from Yosef. David, a very popular name. Do you think it's in the minds of the non-Jewish people, this concept of the equality of Mashiachs?
Equality? I think... No, I don't. I think they're aware of both, but the riddle has always been, how do we resolve the riddle? The two messiahs is what plagues mankind. How do you? It's a riddle. It's literally almost a riddle. Another one of the riddles that I deal with with a friend of mine. The Vilna Gaon explains that there's a pathway of Shefa, which is like the real divine bounty, to come into the world. When it reaches its crescendo, it's called 999 levels of Shefa. That's the level of absolute good. But then there's another system. What's called the 999 is called Mashiach ben Yosef. But there's another system where it's called 499 to the left and 499 to the right. The question is, make up your mind. Is it 999, or is it 2 through 2 doses of 499? And the idea is, when you have the true level of good, 999, where Hashem makes it the 1,000th, that's spread over 2 functioning roles as one. Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, the left and the right, each one almost 500. Together brings you to 999. We find this with male-female, Adam and Eve, the Jew and the Ger. There's always this support system. Right? Water is supposed to just flow upwards. And what King David says in Psalms is there's an angel pushing it down. Right? There's always 2 agencies. I am Hashem your God. You shall have no other gods. You have to have good and evil. As the Ramchal says, if there was only good, I would say maybe there's something that's not good. So by evil we come to very good. When evil reverts to and expresses and proclaims that only there is good in the world. So all the time, God has created the two, and they must be utterly equal to express the unity of goodness in this world. How that works out between David and Yosef is the great mystery of God in his revelation, Baruch Hu v'Shechinatei, Israel and the nations, Jew, Ger, male, female, you name it. Everything has this quality of a relationship. And that has been the secret of redemption since the beginning of time, that no one has really understood to the point of universal awareness. And the Vilna Gaon Zionism and path to redemption is determined to end the game, and by bringing the fulfillment of the Messiah.
So is the Mashiach ben Yosef, his necessity, that is the equivalent of the beginning of Geula?
Absolutely, and this is why people are not getting Mashiach in our time. Right? It's literally, if I've given you this mashal before, this analogy. Let's say you really want to get somewhere, Ari. Yeah? You really want to get there, right? Yeah?
Yeah, let's say I really get there, yeah.
Alright, good. And you gotta take a bus, agreed?
Okay, if I have to. I'd rather not, but fine.
In this case, you have to. And you were 1 second late for the bus. What happens?
I missed the bus, and then I have to take a different bus.
But then you're going to miss the opportunity.
Right.
So you're out. You're saying, well, man, I brought my gym shoes and my bag. I'm ready to go. What happened? I say, Ari, you're out. You missed the bus. You say, but I was here. I came. No. You did not equate getting on the bus as essential as where we were going. If you have that mentality, probably this goes for life as well. You will miss everything. In speaking, the very first words that come out of a person's mouth are generally what they're thinking about saying. When you miss that, it's all a guess from there on. All relationships are based on the beginning. Once you miss the beginning of anything, you've missed the whole thing. Mashiach ben Yosef is the sanctification of the beginning of redemption. Call it the Beit of Bereshit, which stands for blessing. Everything we have is this way. Then you have a topsy-turvy, lopsided, skewed point of view. But when you sanctify the beginning, then if you carry it through and you get it to the end, you have the entirety in your hands. You've fulfilled the equality, and all of God's goodness is now fit to come into your vessel. It really works like that.
But Kabbalistically, isn't everything in the end?
Such as?
The davening, Leinu, right? Everything is in a Leinu, encompassed things with, I guess, holidays. It's at the end of Shabbos is the holiest time, that kind of stuff. So isn't this a contradiction to say that everything's in the beginning, or the most important part of the beginning, when Kabbalistically the most important part is at the end?
Do you know what Shabbos is?
It's the seventh day of the week.
do you know what Kiddush and Havdalah is?
That's sanctification, but on both ends.
Sanctification of what?
The difference between the regular week and Shabbat.
What's the difference?
One's holy and one is not holy.
What is holy?
Holy is something that's different.
What's different?
Something that's not like what it usually is.
What is not like it usually is?
I don't know. That part I lost.
It's called a bracha.
Okay.
You're doing good to the very end.
Okay.
The bracha is what you sanctify over Kiddush and what you sanctify over Havdalah. That's actually the Torah level of Kiddush and Havdalah. So when you've been working at Shabbos for a while, what happens is that when Shabbos comes in, you're receiving your bracha, the thing that you get, the thing that you do. And you don't do it, let's say, exclusively during the week. So it's only at the recognition at the beginning of Shabbos do you get the full extent of the bracha at the end of Shabbos. Now I'll give you an example. for my own personal life. This is working on this for like 20 years already. Which, it takes time. As a bacher, I didn't have this. At least the knowledge of it. When in my personal life, again, assuming that I've worked on this for 20 years, Shabbos is ready to come in, the food is prepared, and my kids are playing. Okay? I go in a totally different mode. Remember, the internet's shut off, my phones are shut off, electronics are all done, there's no ding, 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 answer this, answer that. The only thing that I care about as a personal endeavor is sitting at my shtender and learning a sefer. Now, I learned in my office all week long, but it's work related. Now I have books that I learn only on Shabbos. That's the bracha. My personal bracha, I've realized, is learning Torah, not being bothered on Shabbos. So it comes in, and I feel it come in. I see it come in. I recognize it coming in on Friday. But then, I'm exhausted, and I go to bed early. But by the time of Shalosh Shudas on Shabbat day, by then, I've been so immersed in learning, I'm in a different dimension. Shabbos is just beyond time and space. And this happens every week. Why? That's my bracha. The good news is you get a bracha on Shabbos. Right? And it comes in every week. So, yeah, the powerful bracha of it is at the end. But if you don't sanctify it at the beginning, you'll never get it at the end. And I'm sure if you personally, Ari, if you think about this, of every week what your Shabbos are like, you should be able to see it, how it comes in, and how by the end of Shabbos, you had a full sanctification. The seventh day ended up being not like the rest of the week. It was blessed. It was holy. You did make a Kiddush and Havdalah by definition of you taking up your blessing. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, I would say so. If things are prepared properly, I have a different experience than if it's kind of thrown together last minute. So that's what I'm saying.
Do you recognize your blessing on the Shabbos day? The thing that you just end up doing, the thing that you do.
Yeah, when it goes good, yeah. When I have that flow.
Right, exactly.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. The email is MessiahHour@gmail.com. My guest is Rabbi David Katz, co-author of the book The World of the Ger. Let's talk a little bit more about, you mentioned the Gras, beginning of the Gula with equality, and talk about, again, Zionism, how that plays together, its role in all of that.
So to keep with the Shabbos analogy, right, you said just 2 seconds ago, if it flows, it goes, right?
Yeah, so if it flows, it goes, yeah.
The redemption is the same way. When you to get the flow is to get into Mashiach ben Yosef. To get into the, get down and dirty with, get your hands dirty, so to speak. As he describes, suffering over the land, building the land. Then, you begin to work it. And then you get the flow. Look, is there ever a more horrible time than Friday afternoon before Shabbos? It's a horrible time. You're exhausted. You've been working all day. I mean, it's not fun. But it's not meant to be fun. You're supposed to get your hands dirty, get the house clean, cook the food. It is a nightmare. But once Shabbos comes in and it's done, now the flow can start to happen, right? You get into your meal and you're saying, well, that was kind of short-lived. Now I'm tired. I got to go to bed. Go to bed. When you wake up and you did all of Friday right, then Friday is just like the perfect day. All the things get knocked out of the way, the Gevuras die, stumbling blocks are out of the way, and you just get to be in your element. That's the aspect of the complete redemption. That's what the Vilna Gaon is all about. That's what the equality is about. Here's a dose of equality for you. Make your blessing on Friday the same as Saturday. Not better and not worse. Right? Treat the nasty part, the prep, the tired, the labor, treat that with the same reverence of the bliss of Shabbos day. Then you'll get that bliss Shabbos day, and you'll get the right launch Shabbos, Erev Shabbos. That wisdom works for everything. That's how the redemption works. That's how Shefa works. It's how the Messiahs work. It's how the Zionism works. It's how coming to Israel works. You have to treat coming to the land and fighting for the land to stay on the land on the same level as the bliss of being on the land. Then you'll get the bliss of being on the land.
Again, this is the Messiah Hour here on Israel Sports News Radio. A few more minutes, Rabbi David Katz. So I understand there is a special number that's involved with all this, 999-499-499. What is that exactly?
The Vilna Gaon describes the pipeline of goodness that comes to the world. So the highest level of goodness is almost 1,000. God makes it tip over to the 1,000 point. But again, the equality is you cannot experience goodness alone. Right? Shabbos meal alone is a totally different experience than when you share it with somebody else. And you would think that if I share, I'm going to take away from my experience. Right? If I give my goodness to somebody else, maybe they'll eat all my food or whatever it is. If we relate to Mashiach ben David greater than Mashiach ben Yosef, or if we want to go backwards and say, they had it right 2,000 years ago, now we're just waiting for the cherry on top. You got it wrong. Everything must be distributed over and through two things. Very male-female. Jew-ger. Right? Friday, Saturday. All these things have to come together to appreciate the full goodness of any one thing. Right? I'm sure the Ari Louis radio show would be a lot different if it was just the Ari Louis show. Right? You and no guests, right?
Yeah, it would be pretty boring.
You're right. It would get real old real quick. And, if it was, David Katz giving Torah from his office with no audience, no guests, no radio, just me staring into space. Hi, everybody. It's me again. Me again. Yeah. It'd be pathetic. It's just, you have to have two. I mean, this is the way the world is. There's God in His creation. Not that God needs a creation. It's more that we need God. If we view ourselves alone, then we suffer, and that's the plight the world's in now. So this type of wisdom of redemption, it goes everywhere. And, it caters to every other wisdom, and that's why it's the essence of the redemption.
All right, and last question we have for the rabbi. We're talking about redemption, so let's talk about the redemption of the truth and how that's really the redeeming aspect of everything.
The redemption of the truth is what has to come about as the essence of the redemption. So the Vilna Gaon calls it the Geulas HaEmes, the redemption of the truth. There's the redemption of the revealed aspect of the Torah and the redemption of the hidden aspect of the Torah, which is the Kabbalah. There's also redemption of all types of wisdom. This is why the Vilna Gaon says to learn all the 7 wisdoms and to learn what's called Chachmas HaDiktuk, which is the loosely grammar, but more than grammar, really how Hebrew works in rabbinic and text and the way the sages use Hebrew. It's not so much as grammar, but how they use Hebrew. Right? Again, kind of getting dirty, down and dirty with the language. It's not so much of being proper and it means this and that rule and this, really working it out, rolling up your sleeves, investigating. That has to happen, the redemption of the truth. When you find the truth, the Vilna Gaon says you connect to Yerushalayim Shomala, the Jerusalem above, or what's called the holiness of Israel, Kedushas Yisrael, the real holiness of Israel, in the spiritual realm above. When that happens, and then we build Jerusalem here, parallel to this, that's when you have the holiness come, that's when the temple can come down, that's how you have the Shekhinah return to Zion, all the things that we're looking for, removing the impurity of the land, the Torah emanating from Zion, all of this is predicated on the redemption of the truth. Anything that's not focusing on the redemption from the beginning of the redemption aspect, then and everything we do that's not that, we hold, let's say, of, the guy wants to be a ger, but he holds of Yeshu. The Jew holds of this and that, but he doesn't hold of Mashiach and Yosef. Everything that you get wrong, so to speak, on the beginning of the redemption, you are holding back the redemption. It's sad that we really are responsible. God truly makes us responsible. Thus, it's incumbent upon all of us to work on the Amalek of ourselves in our heart, to remove the impurity that keeps us from becoming holy, connecting to the truth, allowing us to come out into freedom. Anything that we're lacking there is the Amalek in us. We become a Geula blocker. Eventually, there will be a Messiah that wipes out Amalek on that level. And then we break through. And we're trying, as a nation, as a people, it's incumbent upon humanity. But you see, it's very difficult. The Vilna Gaon, for whatever reason, was given the wisdom, as per the time and place he was in, to show us how the light at the beginning of the redemption will look like. And now it is our job to finish that work and hopefully to bring the completion and the fulfillment of the coming of the Messiah soon in our days.
Amen to that. Again, this has been another episode of the Messiah Hour here on IsraelSportsandNewsRadio.com. If you're following us on our website, you can also check out the YouTube channel, Messiah Hour. Just type that in YouTube, search Messiah Hour with Ari Louis, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is free to do so. Tell your friends. And, of course, the email, messiahhour@gmail.com. PayPal is IsraelSportsRadio@yahoo.com. My guest has been Rabbi David Katz, co-author of The World of the Ger. You can find his website, somazal.com, to find out more about what your name means. And, of course, gergear.com. You can pick up a copy of the book, as well as Amazon. You can pick up a copy as well. Rabbi Katz, great job as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, Ari. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Stay tuned for a lot of great programming throughout the week. This is the Messiah Hour on IsraelSportsNewsRadio.com. And shalom from Israel.